All things money matters now. The JSE is firmer in midday trade, on track to reverse Monday's losses that saw the local bourse drop the most since the COVID-19 pandemic hit. Investors still appear unsettled, though, in light of the uncertainty about the extent to which the U.S. Federal Reserve is likely to increase interest rates. For a sense of what is driving market sentiment, we're joined now by Viv Govender. He's the portfolio manager at Swiss Rand. Viv, thank you for availing yourself this afternoon. So the JSE looks to be fighting to retain lost gains while the Rand remains sluggish. Let's talk through the numbers this hour.
Oh, yes. It's no surprise that the JSE is recovering a bit today. If you look at just what happened to the US last night, the US at one point was down quite significantly before ending up slightly positive. The intraday movement in the major indices in the US was quite dramatic. The Dow was down about 4% or so and basically ended down flat, and the S&P was down quite significantly as well and also ended up flat. Obviously, when we closed, the day market was just opening, so we just get the initial impact of that negative start. But now today we're getting the kind of knock-on effect of that positive ending. However, we must note that this has been a pretty tough year, 2022, in terms of overall market performance. It hasn't been great. In fact, at the worst point yesterday, it was one of the steepest falls to start a year off in U.S. markets for quite some time. So we are seeing quite a dramatic pullback in markets. As you mentioned, it is about interest rates, what the U.S. Fed is going to do, and of course what the global markets are going to do to follow that up. Right now, I suspect the U.S. Fed is not quite certain as to what the actual condition of the U.S. economy looks like. We've had some indicators that inflation may not be as transitory as had been hoped for, but at the same time, there is some indicators that economic growth is not as great as it's been thought of, especially U.S. retail sales over December, which were quite low, actually negative. So that's obviously a huge concern as well for them.
South Africa's leading business indicator increased by 0.6% from a month earlier. Talk us through the significance of this data and what it means really for the country's overall trade.
Well, look, an improvement is an improvement. That's quite nice, but you must note that we are in South Africa going to grow at a significantly lower clip than our major trading partners, and certainly than the countries that we want to emulate, just like China and India in terms of growth rates. China and India are going to be doing, I think China is doing 5.5%, India is over 7%, almost 8%. The US is looking to do just under 4%. The EU is going to do maybe just over 4%. We're going to struggle to do 3%. And next year, we're going to trend lower, and the year after, I think the overall long-term trend that they're looking at in South Africa is about 1.5% to 2%. So yes, the improvement is good, but we must remember that the overall situation is quite bad, and of course the base numbers are quite bad as well. Remember, we were obviously affected first by the Omicron variant.
The investment arm of Numsa 360 Life, they've filed an answering affidavit objecting to the provisional curatorship secured against it by the Prudential Authority in December. Help us make sense of those developments.
Look, I don't want to go into the details of this. I have no information on it, and I have no ability to comment on it beyond what is in the public sphere at the moment. But I must say that we have seen some issues like this in the past, where entities that have credibility in one area try and expand their credibility to another area, which they may not have experience in, where they may not have competence in, and that obviously is quite bad, especially when it comes to a point in which they are going to be taking other people's money, especially workers' money, and it obviously you must be cautious, let me say, when it comes to these kind of situations where just because you trust an entity in one area doesn't mean you should always trust it in another area where it has no experience in.
Let's take a look at news from Motors, the automotive company that was spun off Imperial Holdings. They say they expect first half headline profits to jump by as much as 55%. Some of the most significant factors that drove this surge.
Oh, yes. This is a case of every cloud having a silver lining. Motors is benefiting from the fact that you can't get new cars at the moment. I don't know if anyone's trying to buy a new car right now, but there is a significant chip shortage, and because new vehicles obviously require a lot more computer technology than they used to in the past, that has meant that there's a significant difficulty in getting new vehicles produced because you can't get the chips that are going to make them operate properly. And that meant that older vehicles are obviously going to be in high demand. If you can't get supply from the new side. You have to go and buy an older vehicle, a used vehicle, if you do need a car. And that's boosting up all used vehicle prices. It's not a local phenomenon, it's a global phenomenon. We've seen cases in the US, for instance, where, used cars are going for higher than their sale price. If you bought it maybe a couple of years ago for a certain amount of dollars, now you can probably still put an actual premium to that, which is a huge, discrepancy from history, especially in the developed world where new car prices are significantly more than used car prices. Used car values basically dropped quite precipitously in the developed world.
Cashbuild has published a second quarter operational update. Let's talk through that performance.
Yeah, look, they talked a lot about the fact that they are experiencing some issues with regards to the riots from last year. They did talk about, of course, the impact of those on their business. They were affected slightly by it. They are seeing a bit of a drop in terms of sales. And look, Cashbuild has benefited to a certain extent by the lockdown. People weren't going out. They saw their houses more closely and for longer periods than they were used to. And therefore, they were looking to improve and make it out of the quarantine. But, they still need to have an improvement in the local economy before we can see a sustainable growth rate for the business. And, of course, things like the July riots last year did not help.
Viv Govender is the portfolio manager at Rand Swiss. Thank you.